Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today is life coach and LOA teacher Joel Elston.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
Now, we often have really fun and interesting conversations with deep dives and rabbit holes and all kinds of fun stuff. And they have actually increased in frequency, if anything, in the last month or two, because Joel Elston, of course, has been able to rejoin me now that we're doing these Tuesday recordings at 7 p.m. Eastern. But I think we're going to actually bring in a bulldozer, or no, well, it wouldn't be a bulldozer. I guess it would be an earth mover to basically build the new hole that we're about to dive into, because this one is massive. And yes. Joel, when you were telling me about it over the weekend, I mean, you actually sent me something. It was probably the longest piece of writing I've ever seen from you. And it was really in depth. It was really cool. Now I've titled it, I kind of took this obviously from the stuff that you sent me. I titled it Nonverbal Communication in the Subconscious Mind. But I think that title barely scratches the surface. So give us an idea of, first of all, where this is coming from and where are we going with this?
Well, this weekend I was working on my book that I've been working on for the last 5 years, and I was doing a chapter, and most of the stuff is always about subconscious mind, but I have an entire chapter of subconscious mind, reprogramming subconscious mind. And as I was getting different quotes and looking at different theories, I look at all the scientists and the pseudoscientists, and I try to get all the different views. Joe Dispenza is really big in this. Dr. Joe Dispenza is really big in these concepts. So as I was looking at it, I saw this TikTok video of all things of this lady who is a body language coach. Oh. And, there's pretty much a coach for everything. So that makes sense. Sure. And she was talking about how, and this is stuff I do as well. A lot of young people that I see, because of having their devices, they're often bent over. For years, they're always looking down, and they have their shoulders rolled forward, head bent down, and eventually it starts to develop that bent over look. So I've always said, just for posture wise, all the young men I know, I'll put that chin up, put that chest out, pull those shoulders back, and I'm doing it more for good posture. But she was talking about how when she's dealing with a lot of people who feel social anxiety, and when they correct the body posture, number one, by shoulders down and back, head up, straight gaze, chest extended, upper chest extended, and walking with a gait, people report just that move alone, it reduces their social anxiety. But when they walk up with their hands in front of them and their head down, their social anxiety it matches what their anxiety is. Yeah. So the idea that she started working on just the different ways of how body language will influence how you feel about yourself. It influences how other people feel about you as well as communication. So one thing when I have a client, I do virtual work, but only after I have met with somebody in person, if possible. I don't like to do all virtual work. Okay. Because the reason is I do a lot of body matching, body imaging. I see if people respond to matching my body language, and they have no idea this is going on. So I need to know, what works with you, with what may work with you. We've never met in person, so I don't really have this, but something tells me you enjoy eye contact, you enjoy that energy back and forth, that in a way that would be direct for. That's probably what 80% of the people like, but about 20% of the people don't like eye contact. So I had a client who had been to several different therapists here in the area, young man, and he just never made any progress. So he ends up with me, and we were talking one day and I was doing this process. So I realized he was not looking at me when I talked, but when he talked, he would look at me. So I got him.
That's interesting, by the way. That's very, because usually it's the other way around.
Exactly. So so when he started talking to me, I just would look off to the side, and when he finished, I would turn to him. He would look off to the side, and we had a really good conversation. So I asked him if we could experiment. I said, because he told me he'd never thought about that before. I said, why don't we turn our chairs opposite of each other? We can't see each other. We'll sit back to back, and let's just talk. And he was like, oh my gosh, and we had the best session. I mean, so I said, part of our goal is to one day maybe turn the chairs back around. But for right now, let's just do it this way since it's so productive. And
Yeah.
he's like, and he just started making incredible progress. We eventually were, but the idea that body language, that his reception to things, his ability to perceive things, he just was very uncomfortable with eye contact. I explained to him, while this is great for a therapeutic session for us, this isn't going to work in a job interview. You're going to say, excuse me, can we turn our backs to each other so I can interview well? So we worked on strategies, and I taught him how to look right above my head where he's not making eye contact, but it looks like he's making eye contact.
Good strategy.
And so he's doing really well. So I started, and I do this body imaging stuff a lot of times. I'm sitting here with my hands crossed my leg, not for any reason because I'm comfortable doing this, but I'll often in sessions change my leg. You'll be shocked at how many people will mimic that.
Yeah.
I'll put my hands crossed across my knees like this. They'll mimic that. I'll lean forward. They'll lean forward with me. I'll lean back. They'll lean back with me. And it is, believe it or not, it's a subcategory of hypnotherapy when you're doing that. You're able to engage somebody in the nonverbal. So the nonverbal is often thought of as secondary communication, but for some people it's primary. And they're not really picking up what you're saying. They're looking at how you're responding. Are you making eye contact? Are you interested? Are you animated when you talk? Those are things that really matter to a lot of people. So I start doing this research into, well, if all of this matters. So law of attraction is always my big underlying sort of umbrella of what I'm looking at.
Sure.
Then right behind that, subconscious mind. So the subconscious mind is conditioned to feel a certain way. We were talking about how pre-programmed stuff from years ago makes us respond certain ways in certain situations. So what if we did it reversed? And what if we just found the right body language to match what we're wanting? Would that reverse engineer the subconscious brain? Are you with me so far? Yeah. Are you with me on this?
Yeah. What a concept. I mean, holy cow.
Yeah. So I'm finding some really, a lot of work in England was done with this. This doctor
Really?
from Oxford was years ago was coming up with this, and he called, I think he called it the body hypnosis of body language or something along those lines of just how do you, and he started using this in a practice that really was one of the, for a certain group of people, was one of the most effective ways to work on these things. So my strategy has always been act as if let's act as if we're successful. Taking that further, not only going to act, carry yourself as if you're going to that. What does confidence look like to you? What is, and even though you may not feel it's the opposite, your subconscious brain is going on the old information. And when you walk up to somebody and you have old programming that you're intimidated, whether it's a job or a partner or whatever that may be, you're going to respond with an old program. So when you radically change your body to that, that will start making a difference. In theory, is what this doctor was saying. And he had a lot of success doing that, not with everybody, but a certain group of people who really relied that, because when you talk about neuro-linguistic programming, it's one of my hundreds of certifications that I really love. and everybody has a different way. There's people who learn by hearing, they learn by seeing, they learn by touching, and different combinations of that. So, you find people that are really attuned to body language. So my middle son, I guess he's my middle son now. Yeah. Cause I adopted one late. So my middle son, Chris, who doesn't like for me to ever talk about him on shows or Facebook, but he's going to get this today.
Sorry, Chris. We'll try to keep it brief.
Yeah. So years ago, we were going from Richmond to visit friends in Charlotte, North Carolina. Okay. And it was an August afternoon. And if you're driving around the Southeast in August on that, you can almost guarantee between here and Charlotte, there's going to be a thunderstorm. It's just almost guaranteed. Yeah. And we got into a really bad thunderstorm. I mean, you could barely see, nowhere to pull off. I didn't really know where I was at. I mean, I knew where I was at, but didn't really know the area. And so I am leaned up on the steering wheel, leaned up. Not that helps, but I'm in this super alerted position.
Right.
And I had no idea. And Chris, who had a lot of trauma as a child before I adopted him, was very attuned to alerted positions.
Ah, yes.
And he asked me, he said, Dad, are we going to be okay?
Mm.
I go, of course, son, we're going to be okay. He goes, but it doesn't look like we're going to be okay. He didn't know how to say it.
Right, right.
And I just sat back, put one arm up like I'm normally driving. And he quickly de-escalated because now I'm in my normal driving posture. Now, it was bad rain. And I realized me being up on the windshield did not help at all. But it's just that alerted position. So there's people that are very attuned to alerted positions or what they perceive as alerted positions. So I
got to ask something here. I got to ask something here. Because the thought just keeps coming to my mind through almost every example that you're bringing up here. One of the things that is a relatively recent discovery in the world of psychology and of the neurosciences is the discovery of what they call mirror neurons.
Yes.
And I'm wondering what role in your perception mirror neurons are playing in all of this process.
Well, that's on my list. So
that's on the list. Oh, okay. I anticipated the list.
Yeah. So the reason, when you're watching a sporting event and you see somebody get nailed in the groin area, if you're a male,
yeah,
and with a baseball, you know how boring that sport is, Walt. But it's
who says it's not exciting? I'm telling you.
Yeah. So that's one of the exciting pieces. I'm giving Walt a hard time because his stance on baseball. But anyway, so when you see someone get hit in the groin area, if you're a man, you automatically lean forward.
Oh, yeah. It's just a flinch.
It's a flinch for a second because you have sympathetic pain. The mirror neurons feel the pain. They've done studies where they can see the brain registers pain.
Right.
When they show the Harvard doctor that did this study, I forget his name, but the Joe Theismann incident where Lawrence Taylor snapped his leg in half.
Horrible.
On Monday Night Football. If you saw it, you haven't ever forgotten it.
If you haven't seen it, don't look. Just
don't look.
Take our word for it. It's not worth seeing.
And on top of that, if you do insist on looking at it, turn your volume down because
yes, please.
Yeah, because it's so loud.
It's
when you hear the
grisly.
crack.
Oh God.
So when they show people who've never seen that before, they put measuring the brain waves all that on the head and seeing when they register pain. People register severe pain when they see someone else going through severe pain.
You talking about right now, just bringing that up, I am now in a huddled position with my arms wrapped around me because it's so uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's vile. It's almost like you can't even imagine. And I remember I was pretty young when that happened. And I could just almost want to throw up.
Yeah.
Just see, and I couldn't even believe I heard the sound. It was like, oh my gosh. And that's before this high def stuff we have now. This was way back.
The thing that always sticks in my mind is Lawrence Taylor, who was the guy who did the hit. His reaction. I had never seen him with that emotion on his face before. He was absolutely
scared.
Horrified.
Yeah, he was calling people over, and those that you don't know, Lawrence Taylor was not a man generally to expose kindness.
No, not at all. Lawrence Taylor is the reason why they now pay so much money to left side offensive tackle because they need that guy to have the ability to stop the Lawrence Taylors of the world.
Yeah, exactly. He set the record. So the mirror neurons play a big role in this. So but they also work in a way. This is what I'm getting into theory, but what if you can use that same, almost by projecting what you want in your body language? Do the mirror neurons pick up on that energy as well? Is that a factor here? I don't know. I'm thinking there's a role here.
I think so too.
Yeah. So the confidence that we have. So one of the things that I've done before is when people that are really self-conscious and go through things, we'll go walk. I have been accused or suggested sometimes, like people say, well, you're a little cocky with your walk, and I go, yes, I am.
How can you be cocky with a walk? I'm really lost on that one.
I don't know, but I just me. I'm like, Excellent. Yes. Good idea. I don't, yeah. But I do walk with confidence, and I do, I do put my chest, and I have a big chest, so maybe me sticking my chest out makes something a little more. I don't know, but
Okay, maybe that's possible.
I'm not
That at least makes some sense out of it. I mean, cocky walk. I mean, come on, it's a walk for goodness sake.
It's a walk, but it's a confident walk for sure. I'm not walking through the mall where people thinking I'm timid. To be fair, so,
right? I got it. Yeah.
So and me, I don't mind that any of that stuff. So it's at least I'm expressing my confidence when I walk. Sure. So helping young people is one of the things I've always, and I've never really realized that it's working both sides of the equation. It's just not the appearance. It's really helping you feel more confident. And that keeps getting into a deeper. So what levels of, do we use it in different ways with, correcting the past stuff, the subconscious programming that doesn't serve us from our childhood. I've often told the story of my roller coaster debacle as a child. I'm not going to tell it over, but huge fear of roller coaster to the programming of my mom when I was young. Eventually discovered I loved roller coasters. So, the idea that I had to literally reprogram what that thought was, so I really enjoyed it. And so now we love roller coasters. To this day, I love roller coasters. And the idea, did I change? How did that change? What took place? What was my perspective that changed? And, it is a long process, but sometimes it can be a really quick process when you have extreme situations where sure. It's sort of like anything else. And you can move quickly up this chain if you really are believing it, seeing it, and especially if you can accept it differently. Me being, I don't have social anxiety, but people that have social anxiety, when they practice what we're talking about, I've talked to people about it that have used these theories. They never really thought about it. They would fake being confident, and they became actually confident. And that's something that we're saying. It's just the faking of it. You do it, and people perceive them. So I have a client that told me about this. So this weekend I called him. Met with this client in 2 or 3 years. So he worked for this company, and he was sort of stuck, and he was very timid. So we worked on body language and all the stuff, none of the stuff we're talking about, but just the appearance. And within a week or two of him changing his body language, people asked him, did you get a haircut? Is something different? And, he went from sort of being the office nerd, as he calls it, his words, to just different. The young lady he was interested in, had never paid attention for it, started talking to him. They started dating, eventually ended up marrying her. So I took the opportunity to talk to him and her, because I was in the middle of this deep study. Yeah. And I asked her, I said, so you remember all this? And she goes, yeah, it was like he instantly changed. And I don't know, he went from just the guy in the office to somebody who's super attractive and confident. Wow. And so I saw him differently. She said, I didn't know if I was always looking at him wrong, or she said, but we kept looking. Did he lose weight? Did he lift? And all he did was change the way he walked. And, but he then said, then the more that people responded to me, I started to buy into it myself. Yeah. And I no longer have I defeated social anxiety by first changing my body language, getting the feedback that supported that. And I defeated I don't ever have a problem with that anymore.
Now, I can think about this and say to myself, well, there are probably situations where it's fairly easy to adopt a new way of walking, a new body language, a new way of posturing or whatever. But there are probably other times where we're not really sure exactly how to do it. And we may even be setting ourselves up in a way to do it that isn't correct, so to speak, that doesn't actually serve the purpose. So how do we know?
Well, and that's where I think to research, to actually research what appropriate confident body language is. I think this is one of those things. I'm not saying you need a coach for everything, but you would certainly want someone who has knowledge in this to say, what does this, like when I'm talking, I use my hands a lot. Mm-hmm. And that is something that, I'm always doing this, not on purpose is what I'm conditioned to do, but that is a reaching out. That is me seeking your attention. And, it shows I'm interested. I do that, what I just did a lot. It's like, me expressing. So you're people respond to that. So I've gotten a lot of positive feedback over the years by the way I do that. So that's reinforced to me in how I do things. So the area of caution is, let me just try to fix this myself, but what I think is confident, and it may have the reverse effect, because it's shoulders back. That you don't want to look like this. You don't want to do that.
It's got to be relaxed looking.
It's got to be relaxed, but like when you stand, if your knuckles are facing forward versus your thumbs facing forward, has a different approach how people see you. It's more, and little things like that. The way you sit, the way you lean forward, the way you lean back. I'm not a fan of close talking people. I certainly am not an introvert, but I don't like somebody I like a little space between us. You know what I mean? And it's just, and I don't know what that is, but there's a place for me that there's people that like that intimacy. They want to get as close as they can to you. And I'm like, no. So I get into a defensive posture when they have no aggression toward me at all. So I could be, so it can get mixed signals. This person is just really wanting to be close. When it's my younger clients, I have an open, obviously they're to be coached. I can say, look, here's what you do. I had a young man that he when we were standing up talking, he would get right up. I mean, right there.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, bro, little quick. I said, here's my arm length. I said, let's call that the area. And he took 2 steps back. And he goes, oh, I don't know why I do that. And I go, for whatever reason, and I know why he did it. But he's always seeking. His dad left when he was 2. Being around, he just really doesn't have any male energy. So when he gets around a male that pays attention to him, he just, basically he's subconsciously seeking, hoping I give him a big old hug or something. So he just stands close. But I didn't tell him all that. I said, look, for whatever reason, just when you're talking, stand, make that good eye contact. But there's people that when you get really close to them, they get uncomfortable. And he worked on that. He said that helped him a lot because he never realized that. So how we stand, how we look at people, how we maintain eye contact, when you figure all this out, and you figure out that some people respond differently. Some people like to look away. Some people like dead-on eye contact. Somebody like, find out what their connection, how they do. That's a good way to work on sales, whether you're interviewing for a job, whether you're going on a date. What body language are you putting out? Not what you're saying, because what you're saying, we're often conditioned to say, well, I'll take that with a grain of salt. But body language generally doesn't lie. So there's people that trust body language far more than they do whatever's coming out of a person's mouth.
It makes a lot of sense. It really does. I still go back to, I totally agree with what you said a moment ago, how, especially when you're trying to adopt a more confident stance or whatever, you really need to have the input of another person, a coach in this case, to help you identify that you're doing it in a way that serves you rather than works against you. But I'm also wondering, are there things that we can kind of take on by ourselves? Is there anything that we can work on that actually will help us without the likelihood that we're going to undermine ourselves in the process?
Well, the general basic stuff, and this is sort of across the board. There's some basics. Eye contact for 80% of the population is really needed and really stressed. When you look up, when you're looking up, you're recalling something. You're trying to remember something. It's like it's like when you're like, okay, this happened. And I ask questions a lot and see how people, what do they look up? There's some people that look down. There's some people that claim, and this isn't fact, but when you're trying to come up with a lie, you tend to look down to the right, generally.
Okay.
And now,
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah, not everybody, but it's one of those things to, which way are they doing it? But there's people that, you'll put, when you're really questioning something, you might put your hand here and look up, try to recall a statement or a fact. A memory might be something, tends to be up to the right. I'm trying to remember, when was that? And the facial expression that goes, when was that? It's literally, do this, and you would think, well, he's asking himself a question.
Yeah, I can recognize the behavior myself too. Like I know that if somebody asks me something and I want to try to access it, that's where I look. I do look to the right up.
Yeah. And so that like that, and I always want to be really clear. We're individuals, and how you're brought up and all. So this is general talk, but
sure,
the idea of making eye contact, speaking confidently, speaking clearly, the shoulders, closed off shoulders. It has nothing to do with really being closed off. Usually, it's bad posture a lot of time. But
sure.
The signal of closed off shoulders is you're signaling that you're closed off to the person you're speaking with.
Yeah.
So shoulders back, relaxed. Down. You don't want to pull up.
Right.
That's a good place to stand. It's just. But you don't want to look like you're flexing in the mirror or anything, but you want to do that. Or
you don't want to be like bending over backwards or something.
Right. But these are subtle differences. Like when you are rolled over like that, it's almost like ugh. But when you're back like that, you're receptive. You're opening up for people. So anything that feels like you're opening up is a really good way to do that. And I'm not an expert in this. This is just been my entire weekend deep dive.
Well, that's a lot more than I did this weekend. So that's
yeah. So, but what fascinates me is we always have known, how one side of this works, but it's likely a reciprocal the other way, which is what I was getting into this. So, law of attraction, we always want to do. We want to think as if we have it. We want to live as if we have what we're seeking. All the stuff that we talked about. But are you expressing it in the way you walk? Are you expressing it? Are you walking the way with somebody who isn't fearful of every corner is walking? Are you confidently walking with somebody who's not concerned about financial troubles? If you really believe that things are okay, walk as if things are okay. So there's a video somewhere this weekend that I saw. It was a really good video, and when they showed people like politicians or famous people, how they generally walk and everything, like video of them walking several times. But after they've been accused of something, inappropriate crime or theft or whatever it is, how they're walking then, it literally changes. It's just Bernie Madoff, before he was arrested for his, multi-billion-dollar Ponzi scheme, walked in New York City like he owned the city. He really did. Mm-hmm. After his accusation, he looked like an old man walking down. It was just a huge transformation. And a great example, Tiger Woods, famous golfer, all that, when he had that big incident at Thanksgiving several years ago, where he don't know exactly what happened. He had a really bad weekend. And a lot of media was coming. And as you saw him for the next few weeks, and he eventually went into rehab for sex addiction that he probably doesn't have, but he walked a different way. He didn't walk with a confidence. So it translates. So if you can correct that, I'm making an assumption, and it works for me on some level. Just if I feel tired, like I had a leg workout Sunday, I think it was ridiculous. It was probably overdoing it. I overdo it all the time, but this is like overdoing it.
Okay.
And so while I was tired, I anticipated being tired too. I just crushed a 2-hour leg workout, multiple sets of squats and deadlifts and these heavy duty movements. I was sweating like a pig, but I was tired. But I noticed that I expected to be tired too. So it's like, what if I just don't expect to be tired? Why don't I just try? Now, I still felt the leg workout, but I was able to raise my vibration a little bit, get a little more energy, because I wasn't living as I'm expecting to be tired. And it's just little things like that. What if we can control that in a way? So this is, expanding an entire chapter of my book right now, because it really is something that there's a lot of anecdotal evidence out there, but it's hard to find some hardcore stuff that supports both directions of what I'm trying to talk about.
But it's fascinating nevertheless. And in fact, as you're describing that, I'm realizing that I guess I shouldn't speak for anybody else. I'll just speak for myself. when I'm trying to accomplish some kind of a personal breakthrough, I'm dealing with some kind of an issue, it doesn't matter really what it is. I think one of the things that I kind of do is try to play act something else. I'm not doing it consciously. I'm not saying to myself, well, I'm going to, play as if. No, it's more like if I can just kind of play with this in my own mind as I'm behaving, maybe I'm like exploring. Is there a way to get to where I want to get to that way? So I'm not thinking about it in terms of body language. I'm just thinking in terms of I'm trying things out. But you know what? I'm trying things out with body language without even realizing that I'm trying things out with body language.
Right. So yesterday and today, I saw 8 people in person yesterday and 6 people in person today. And for most of them, there's 2 or 3 I didn't include in this because they were there for sort of different concepts. But the younger guys, they're really open to my weirdness and stuff. So I said, so I asked each one of them, I said, stand up, and they're across the way from me. I said, stand confidently. What does confidently standing look like? And they all put their chest out without me saying anything. They all raised their head. One kid crossed his arms like he was Superman, really high. Yeah. But they have, and so I said, like when the kid did that, and I said, okay, so think about it. Do you feel more confident? He goes, yeah, I do. And, again, that's an in-office type thing, but the idea that they could at least connect and, standing up, but they all had this image. And I said, so you're standing confidently now. Do you stand or walk this way on a daily basis? They go, no. I said, okay. So our goal is to stand and walk more confidently and then report back to me. Do you really feel more confident? Do other people notice? And I gave them a list of like 5 questions, and they're going to do it for me. So, the idea that this could lead to sort of a new way of reverse engineering in a sense, what if we start with our body language and then get the mind to match the body language?
Well, I think you've also identified one of the ways that you can try to do something like this on your own if you don't have a coach to work with at the moment. And that is you try to adopt a posture that represents whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. Yes. And then ask yourself, how does it feel? Does it feel like that thing?
Yes.
And if it does, it almost doesn't matter, I suspect, whether or not the posture actually represents that thing, whatever the thing is. As long as it feels that way, that's what you're really looking for anyway.
Well, and that, especially in the setting we're talking about, where you're the self-practice. Now, eventually you want to, if you're going to carry that into public, you don't want to be walking with what you think is confident and looks ridiculous to anybody else,
This is very true.
Like the weightlifters that I see at the gym that constantly walk around like this, and it's like, okay, bro, that's not confident. That's a little ridiculous. But the idea is that all of this is connected to the stuff we're normally talking about, but it's coming from an angle that I've never have really heard, seen in great detail. But the body, I haven't heard from the body language coach yet, but I emailed her and asking if her and I could talk. I might try to get her on the show with us if she'll answer me. But it would be something that I really like. I'd like to see what her experience is, but just a little bit. When I say a little bit, probably a total of 48 hours of research, pretty in-depth stuff. I'm saying this is a good theory. This is so when people are going through stuff and we're constantly thinking, okay, I'm sad. I'm really sad. This happened. My girlfriend broke up with me. I'm really sad. These things. So your body language is generally going to be, and your demeanor is going to match the result of that, which is normal human behavior. But as we work ourselves out, what if I could spend 5 minutes feeling the posture of happy? What if I could, just 5 minutes? Can we just try it for a little bit? Does that raise your vibration and take action to match that? The concept of, my old theory, if you don't know what to do, you got a lot to do you don't want to do. Wash your dishes. It isn't rocket science. It's easy to do, and it gets you started. You need to get something started. So maybe this is that version of wash your dishes. Stand confidently. Stand, with what you're matching, what you think, like, I love your comment, what you think it looks like to be happy or confident or whatever that looks like, just to see if you can get that energy vibration to match.
Does it feel that way is what I was driving at. If it feels that way, it is almost regardless of whether or not it's showing that to everybody else, you're at least building yourself up on it. That's something important.
Yeah, there's something to that. So so that opens the door. So when you get into the subconscious brain, it remembers everything. Stuff you don't remember, it remembers. It remembers everything.
Annoyingly.
It particularly likes to dwell on the bad stuff or the things you perceive as bad stuff. And we've talked about that in previous shows. Sure. It's a protective mechanism. So every time this event reminds me of something that happened bad as a child, I'm going to get on defense right there. And that's stored for the rest of my life unless I can change it.
Right.
So dysfunctional stuff as a kid, whatever you saw, whatever happened to you, all that stuff, you subconsciously, you could react to it with never consciously knowing what you're reacting to. It just makes no sense to you. Why do I feel this way? I don't know. It makes no sense. Well, somewhere there is. So, by slowly accessing the subconscious brain through meditation, through affirmation, sometimes through tapping or these other things a lot of strategies. It's a slow build to reprogram. It takes a while to reprogram. It took years to totally get solidified. It doesn't generally change overnight. But what if we add matching body postures to what we're trying to reprogram? Does that speed the process up? Yeah.
I would speed it up. Yeah. And not only is it going to speed it up, it's going to give you a taste of where you're getting to. You may not be there yet, but if, like we were talking about before, if you can feel it, even for a moment, you're feeling where you're trying to get to. That for me, I don't know. Maybe this isn't true for everybody. I know that if I'm really feeling something and it does represent where I want to get to, I feel a whole lot more comfortable, not just comfortable, a whole lot more confident that I'll get there, just because I've already experienced it.
Anything you've experienced, you believe you can experience again.
Yeah.
We agree on that, I'm sure. So if you can get yourself to feel that way, like I will never feel this way again, but yet you can make yourself in 10 minutes, even for 1 minute, make yourself feel that way for 1 minute. You just said, oh, I can't feel that way again. Now you might not be able to sustain it right now, but you've opened the door to something you shut off before.
Yeah. Yeah. Really, really fascinating. Something else that occurs to me too is that when we're talking about the role of the subconscious mind, we're also talking about the role of the current conscious mind interacting with that subconscious mind. Yeah. We often think of the subconscious as if it were something separate. It's like this other piece of me, the subconscious is over there, it's driving me nuts, and then there's me over here. But that's not the way it is. It's all kind of wrapped up into one human being. So the conscious mind is always interacting with the subconscious mind, even though the subconscious mind doesn't really necessarily do it consciously.
Yes, you're right.
So when I think about that, I say to myself, well, we're always, in one way or another, either reinforcing or trying to retrain the subconscious mind.
Yes. Everything you do has an effect on the subconscious mind. And we never stop programming the subconscious mind with your perspective, of where you're at, how you feel. That keeps everything going.
We just had our first Joel freeze. He should be back in about 10 seconds, I think. That's the way this usually plays out. And normally what I see is him. Yep, there goes the picture. Here he comes back. Okay, he's back. There he is.
Okay, well, I was hoping that would happen. We did. But the subconscious brain, subconscious mind, it has, I try to tell people it's a picture. Imagine taking a snapshot and with a camera. Mm-hmm. And the camera just takes what's in front of it. It doesn't define it. It doesn't have an opinion on it. So the subconscious brain, the only opinion it has of that snapshot is how you were feeling when that snapshot was taken. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So if you're joyful and something's happening and your snapshot of that, your 5th birthday was joyful, 5th birthday, great day, beautiful, it was perfect. You remember the details. Yeah. If something bad happens and you lose a loved one on a certain day and something was happening, you have associated that.
You just nailed my experience as an 8-year-old. My grandmother died on my 8th birthday.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At 12
I don't
noon,
know
by
who
the
that
way.
is. Oh my gosh. Wow. Well, that's when the
It's the one
forever
thing I
appointment
remember
will have
more
to
than
get
anything
made.
else about my 8th
Yeah.
birthday.
Yeah. 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 Wow. I don't even know what to do with that. That's a lot of company. Uh, wow. But the thing for me is, for the most of my audience, our audience probably knows by now, I lost my son TJ when he was 23
Yeah.
in a car accident. So I found out at 6 a.m. on the Saturday morning after.
Mm.
Um, and the ringtone on my phone, when I got the call, the voice of the person that was talking to me is stored subconsciously associated with that moment.
Wow. Yeah.
For a couple of years, and it was a very common ringtone for an iPhone. I forget which one, but it was. I could hear that ringtone in public, and it freaked me out. It
It
really did.
triggered you.
Yeah, because I associated with it. Over the years, it's been diluted and it doesn't have that same effect. But I have never, I've never used that ringtone again. I'll never
Sure.
use that ringtone for me. And people may say, well, Joel, that's ridiculous. But
That's not
it's
ridiculous.
the subconscious brain. It doesn't know what happened. It just know it's almost like tagging a photo. It tagged that snapshot as really traumatic.
Right. Right.
And so that sound was really traumatic. And so we imagine that. So one day, and I'm not going to reprogram that one. I have no desire. That one's real. We'll just leave that one alone. But if
Sure.
I have a misrepresentation of something or something that I misunderstood one time and it's programmed wrong, I have the ability to eventually, through conscious self-talk and what have you, or experiences, like me with roller coasters, riding a roller coaster after scared to death of a roller coaster, quickly reversed that. I had an entirely different view of roller coaster instantly because I had facts that proved the previous facts totally wrong.
Mm.
That make sense?
It does. It makes sense. It's one of those odd things because there are some things we can do, reverse. We can do the complete 180-degree pivot on, and
Yes.
we can adapt to it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
There are other things we try to do that. It's like, oh, no, that's not going to work.
No. Well, and generally the more actual trauma that was stored subconsciously with that thought is harder to turn, or lifetime dialogue. One of the populations that we often talk about that I work with are foster care kids. And there's very few people that have more negative programming than some child that's been placed into foster care.
Mm-hmm.
Their program from their families generally was very negative before they went into foster care. They're taken or abandoned by their families. And then they go into foster care with people who, maybe don't always care the most. They're often told
Right.
they're really screwed up. They have all these problems. They're depressed. They get put on medication. So they buy that. They store it. I am a bad person. I'm defective. My own mom and dad didn't want me.
Right.
That gets stored. And so while we have, a great example of a young man I've talked about many times who was able to break that pattern relatively quickly.
Right.
Most of them are not exposed through traditional therapy of how to do that. In fact, their brokenness or their disease or whatever you want to call it, their disorders are amplified instead of explained. That you have this. You may be a sociopath. I had one kid told me he was a sociopath. I go,
Wow.
How did you get that? He goes, my therapist said I'm probably going to be a sociopath. I said, well, that's the goal. That's a goal.
Whoa.
And it's like
fire that therapist quickly, please.
Yeah. And I'm like, but when I got he clearly wasn't a sociopath. But yet, imagine a subconscious thing, believing you're going to grow up to be a sociopath.
Yeah.
And so it is a process that we all have that subconscious, conscious brain stuff. You're right. They're always in communication, but the transmission from the old stuff is only stored as fact, how it felt with no other context to it. And
that's an important point, isn't it? No other context.
Yes.
Because without the context, what we do then is we fill in context.
Yes. We always, as humans, we fill in the void. If we don't know something, they have one of my favorite things to do with clients when I'm running out of things to do and they're not talking. I have this set of pictures, and I think I've shared this before. They're just random pictures of things. They're drawing some of them, and I'll just say, "Tell me what you see here," And like one of them, there's this lady. She's looking over this big field, and she's just looking there. It had really a blank expression. Well, to people, like to a lot of my foster care kids, well, she's missing her kids.
Oh, wow.
Her kids have left. Other people think she's really pissed off and she's arguing with her husband. Those are the wives usually. I mean, they all have this. They will shockingly tell you their experience by filling in the blank from what they know, what they think she's doing. And that's a really important thing. We do that. Humans fill in blanks. And
what you're describing is also called projection. In other words, I feel this or I think this, and so I project that same thought or feeling on somebody else.
Absolutely. Yeah. Or if somebody, like I have, my brain's all over the place. So I have friends, very dear friends that, me, I can get off on totally different directions. I'm always busy in my practice. So I have friends I might not talk to for 3 months, and most of the people know me. There's never a thought, but I've had some people say, "Are you mad at me?"
Wow.
I'm like, what? Why would I be mad at you? Have we ever even had no, of course I'm not mad at you. Why do you think that? Well, I texted you and, you never answered. I go, well, I missed it. You should text me again. I never would not answer you. But yet she sat there, they sat there for 2 months thinking I'm mad.
Yeah.
Like, no, trust me, if I'm mad at you, I need to tell you I'm mad, tell you why. Let's work it out. I'm not going to sit there and do that. But a lot of people, because that's what happens, they sit there and worry, well, what do they think?
Mm-hmm.
It's like there's an idea that subconscious, like for a while when I first got into private practice, I was sort of scared. I wasn't I was like concerned. Is this going to work? I was the first life coach in Richmond, so it wasn't a popular thing at the time.
Right.
And, and I had a lot of sort of imposter syndrome going on, and all this. And some of the therapists in town weren't happy I was opening. So there's I had a lot going on. And, if I had a slow day or someone canceled an appointment, I'm like, oh, that's man, I'd have slow financial problems. Now, I had plenty of money put back. I was set to go for a couple of years if I needed to without making any money. But yet I was shocked how appointment cancellation could have affected me. Right now.
It's really amazing because we like to think of ourselves as being rational beings. And yet when it comes down to it, when something happens, we don't react rationally, we react emotionally.
Yeah. And now if I get an appointment cancellation, I'm like, yes.
Different feeling.
Yeah. Oh, I get a break. Let me do a meditation. So it's a different energy all the way. It's like, there's days I'll actually, I think it was a few Thursdays ago, I started, I had just crammed my day full and just a couple, and I looked at the calendar and I'm going, I'm hoping for 1 or 2 cancellations today. Whoever it is, hope they cancel. No, but I'm not going to cancel. I'm going to go the whole day.
Yeah.
And it worked perfectly. My 1 o'clock canceled, and I was like, oh, perfect spot to cancel. Then my 4 o'clock canceled. Yes, and I still had 2 more after that. I was like, and it's a different mindset. It's just but the old days I'd be like, oh, am I going to make this? Is this my business when it falls apart? If I'm very seldom slow. But there are some times when I get I'm generally running a waiting list. So sometimes I like to let it get pretty thin so I get some time before I build it back up. So I have some spaces in there. But that's not built. That's just built on trying to do the best job I can do, pace myself, and not necessarily get stuck in the vortex every day of, there's no more financial insecurity or fear. If my next 2 weeks of appointments canceled, we're good. We're fine. We're going to be okay.
Well, let's use this as a test case. Okay.
Sure.
So, because you've experienced both sides of it, and now you're on what I'll call the more pleasant side, because, well, if you lose somebody, it's actually good news. Let's look at that dynamic there, those two dynamics. There's the old dynamic and the new dynamic. Let's look at them from the perspective of what we've been talking about here, nonverbal communication and how that interacts with the subconscious mind. So let's go back to the Joel who had just started his coaching practice, and he'd get a cancellation and get worried about it. Was there something that you could have done if you knew about this nonverbal communication, subconscious mind thing that you discovered over the last weekend? Is there something you could have done using that to kind of reverse it or shift it or change the way you were feeling about it at that time?
I think if I had enough of awareness of where I was at the time, then yes. My problem back then, I wasn't as attuned to all this as I am now.
Yeah. Oh,
right.
Get it. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just using it as a hypothetical. Like, if you had known, what could you have done about it?
Yeah. Right now, if it would have done what I would, first of all, this is what I used to get through when I would, have for years. If I'll remind myself, look, I have right now, and I'm not talking about right now, but there's a point where I had 5 years worth of money saved up. 5 years. I'm good. So I would just remind myself, I don't change my lifestyle for 5 years and don't collect another penny. I'm good. That helps solve things. I'm really passionate in at what I do. I feel I help people. Without being arrogant, I feel I'm really good at what I do. So I'll remind myself of that. And even if I have a slow period, let's use it for development. I always need time, all the certifications I have. I'm studying for so I always have a backup thing now. If I do have an hour off, nowadays I probably don't do this, but there was a period of time if I had an hour off, I would study whatever I was studying, whatever my hypnotherapy studies needed to be for my next test. I would go study that. And that was a really effective way to deflect from that, and also knew I was improving my skill set as I went forward. So, that was, now I'm just very aware of all of that is, that's just old programming, a lack, of programming, and the way the law of attraction works for me and works so well for me. But at the time I believed in it, but that's really when you and I started working together right around that. And, on a regular basis. And, we both were learning, we were sort of kindergartners in the law of attraction at that point. And, we've moved up.
This is true. This is very true. So in the context of the topic for today, the nonverbal communication in the subconscious mind, I mean, in one sense, you were kind of talking to your own mind, so it wasn't totally nonverbal. But the nonverbal part also implies, like we were talking about earlier, it implies body language. It implies, physical movement and so forth. And I think you kind of described that when you said you would adopt a new set of actions because that new set of actions, in this case, it was studying for your next hypnotherapy exam or whatever it was. That new set of actions would kind of shake up the scenario of it and kind of take you off. Like I used the word distraction. It would distract you from what was previously perceived as, oh God, I just lost a client, or oh God, I just lost an appointment.
Right. Well, and the nuance of that, and I like your redirection there, because the nuance of that is when I took the action of studying, and I write notes when I study, so my body posture changes from sitting there like, oh no, what's going to happen, to going to a desk, grabbing a pencil, taking action. I am now in a learning mode. That's a positive difference. That's I'm doing, so my body language was changed. It wasn't my intent then, but now I see it as you're saying that, me just getting in that action mode of study cleared my mind from any negative and got me focused on the future of my practice, not any problems.
Another Joel freeze. Well, we've only had 2 of them during the show, so that's better than normal. But we'll have to wait another 10 seconds for him to come back. So the picture should disappear in about a second. There it goes.
There we go. So I don't know how much you got of that, but the change in my posture by studying was body language. It wasn't my intent, but now that you mentioned that probably played a really good role, because now I'm in a different body posture that's not sitting in my chair, leaning forward going, oh my God, am I going to lose my practice here because I lost a client? Yeah.
Well, it was occurring to me even as I was saying it. There's one practice that we've given a lot of attention to it, particularly in the last 4 or 5 years here on the show, and that's the practice of journaling. Basically sitting down, writing in a notebook, or whatever comes to your mind, usually about whatever it is you're trying to work your way through. And it occurs to me, I wonder if one of the biggest advantages to journaling is that it changes your body posture from what you were doing before.
And now that you say that, I'm making another connection. This is pretty good stuff as we're doing it, because I've always said journaling is good, no matter how you do journaling. But I have always felt, I never understood why until right now, maybe. Really? I believe in taking a pen or pencil to a piece of paper or even a nice journal and physically writing, because I could never explain what that action felt different than me just typing away at my phone. But possibly it's a body, the body is putting off, I am an action oriented doing it. It's a power move when I'm journaling. I know it's good for me. And now I know you're journaling on your phone, but the posture remains sort of passive, where you're sitting there doing it. So I've always told people I'm a fan of journaling. I prefer you to use pen or a pencil, and also I like get you a nice journal. If you don't have any money, write on whatever you write on. But if you have the ability, get you a nice journal. The feel of, I have a leather journal. The feel of that journal, the idea, it's just, there's something to all that. So maybe, likely even, that's the piece that I've never been able to explain. I think you just filled that blank in for me.
Well, I think you just filled it in for me too, because that's the topic that we addressed a few times. What is more effective? Is it more effective to write with a pen and paper? Is it than to type it or to speak it into a recorder or something like that? And I think you may have nailed why it is more effective to go with paper and pen.
Because the body language change, when we do that, it signals the whole body we're in a either an action, a passive, or a redundant set right now. So the movement to an action oriented state, and that's how this whole topic started as we go full circle. As I was working on my book this weekend, the action of changing your situation. The mind is big. We focus along the brain. There's nobody more mind oriented than you and me. I understand.
This is true.
But there's also the underestimation of the physical, the walk, the move, or whatever that is. The step forward. Like you go someplace, and it's almost not it doesn't matter where you go, but you need to do something. There's an action move attached to that gets the whole chain of events rolling. So mixed into that, a factor that's now part of my deep dive here is the matching body language or what's happening during that process that's signaling back, because it needs to be reinforced. I'm in the gym all the time, and one of the things that is really annoying in the gym is when people do those ridiculous screams when they exert themselves. And it's over.
So they all think they're Steffi Graf on the tennis court, is what you're saying. Yeah.
However, when I'm doing a 450-pound deadlift and I get through that work, I give like a deep there's a verbal release. It's not that ridiculous thing, but I can't not do that. It has to. It's like it's that. Oh my gosh! There's a release in that. So there's a body. It's a power. Maybe it's a power feeling. I don't know what it is. So the next time I do that, I'm going to try not to make a sound and see how that affects my lift. So
that's an interesting experiment. I'm going to be curious to know what the result of that one is.
Yeah. Because it's just you see a lot of that goes on, and there are times when I just feel I do. Again, I'm not the screaming guy, but I give an oomph when I go out.
I know that not so much with weightlifting, because I don't weightlift, but when I'm trying to solve something, particularly if I'm working on myself on something, not so much an intellectual problem or a business problem, but I'm trying to solve something within myself, and I'm getting frustrated, and I can't seem to break through. I tend to self-vocalize. Yeah. It's not like I'm trying to say anything. It's not like I'm trying to impress somebody else who's in the room, because usually nobody else is in the room anyway. But there's something about just exerting a sound that kind of like gets me into the gear of, I'm going to break through this come hell or high water, and I don't know how I'm going to do it, but somehow I'm going to do it.
Yes.
It's the feeling that's associated with it.
Right. Well, it's funny because when I am lifting weights and there's a very specific way you breathe you blow air out on the exertion portion of the lift. You take it in, because it's to relieve blood pressure. When you're pulling a massive amount of weight, you're holding your breath, it builds. So
I got it.
You have to it's almost counterintuitive to what you normally want to do. So I have a breathing technique when I'm doing heavy lifts. Well, I laugh at myself sometimes when I'm moving something around the house that's not super heavy, just moving around. I find myself, and it's funny because I'm just conditioned to breathe with that. So it's maybe 50 pounds. It doesn't need me to breathe.
Right.
But any exertion, I get into that breathing technique. So does the breathing technique help my lifting? Now, in my case, it has to, because it can be damaging not to do it that way. Yeah. But beyond that, I'm just fascinated how the brain picks up on all that. And I look sort of silly when I do that. If I'm helping somebody carry a table in the house and I'm doing this crazy breathing sound, they're like, "Are you okay?" I'm like,
I don't know if you've noticed, but as usual, we've blown through an hour.
Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah, see that. Wow. This is good.
This is normal for us, but
yeah. I don't know why. I really appreciate I like it when during the podcast we actually feed off each other and come up with these ideas. Yeah, I love that. I always appreciate you for doing that.
It's fun. I mean, to me, that's the best kind of conversation, and that's the way we approach doing the podcast. We treat it as a conversation. But sure. when you have that kind of interaction, it's almost like we're feeding each other energy. I think we actually are feeding each other energy.
I believe that.
It's like an energy exchange that goes on.
Yeah. When you get off the podcast, in fact, I can't ever think of a time where I always say I feel better after our podcast. Always.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Literally, the podcast episodes you and I did in the early years are what led me to subtitling the show Your Daily Dose of Happy.
Oh, wow.
For that exact reason.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it is pretty good. I love it. And what I'm also loving is, now that other people come onto the show, I've got more co-hosts, guests come on and so forth. They're all feeding into it. Like, oh yeah, I like that. Let's see. Did I help give the Daily Dose of Happy today? They asked me that after the show,
I love it. Yeah. And it's really, this is great stuff. But really good one tonight. I can't wait to see what we do next week. I
can't wait. Well, it's probably going to be dependent upon what the latest thing is that you're either listening to on Audible or writing into your book. It's going to be one of those things. Maybe something out of your practice, but I kind of put that one in third place.
Yeah. It's usually one of the first two in the top category. But when I have those moments, I go, as you saw by my long message to you, or email, I get really deep in my dives when I do this stuff.
It was cool too. I loved it. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, not only did he send me an email that was a deep dive, but he sent it to me in 3 columns. He figured out how to columnize the emails so that I could see each of the different flows of ideas. It was really cool.
That's the hyper focus of ADHD. That's the superpower of ADD at play there.
There you go. Okay.
The other side of that is when I just respond to you. Okay.
I've gotten a few of those too. Yeah.
It's not personal. It's just, it's not personal. It's just, that's
right.
That's that moment. Yeah.
That's all there is to be said. Why, let's be economical here.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you very much, Joel. This has been great as usual. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.